So good morning, everybody. It is Sunday morning here, and it is quite a cloudy day, and I'm really sorry about any interference. It's Silverstone weekend here, so we've got a lot of very important people flying over. So if there's any noise, in case you think I live on a runway, I don't. It's just very noisy here today.
I, however, do live on a runway. I'm about 3 miles away from Heathrow, so there are going to be planes going over. So I think a common issue here is we're possibly going to have its disturbance.
You might have that, and I think we might have the red arrows going over about 12 o'clock. So, so welcome. Louise and I have met this morning. We're here Sunday morning, chilled out and ready for a lovely Sunday. But Louise kindly offered to do this webinar with us, and I am really, really excited about what's coming. I only know a little bit, but I'm really excited about it. So Louise, thank you so much for joining us this morning and being so willing to do this. I love that you've come, so thank you. So shall we just dive straight in and get you to introduce yourself a little bit? So who you are, where have you come from? Felt a bit like Cilla Black then.
Into leg measurement. Hello everyone, my name's Louise Crockart. I am an aromatherapist based in Twickenham in southwest London. I trained at the Tisserand Institute way back in 1999, and since then I've been dovetailing therapies along all the way, training with the best of the best. And I'm also a reflexologist, an Arvigo practitioner and teacher. That takes me around the world teaching other therapists and teaching my clients how to basically look after themselves. And the best thing about Arvigo therapy is that self-care is just the thing. And really, self-care for everyone is just essential. So yeah, I'd love to talk more about self-care and how we can all look after ourselves so that we can continue being therapists and help others for longer and longer and longer in our...
And that's the thing with aromatherapists. It's actually something that we promote within our school, that self-care's got to come first. Is that whole notion when you go in the aeroplane, they put your oxygen mask on first, don't we? And as a aromatherapist, because we have, you know, a love of people, otherwise why would you do this? But you are looking after everybody so much that actually you maybe start out in your studies and you look after maybe your partner, maybe your children, the dogs, the house, your parents, and then you train as an aromatherapist, then you whack your client list, and then somewhere at the bottom of that there's you. So we always talk about self-care within our school because it's so easily lost and we forget because we're so busy trying to help everybody else. So it's a really good reminder.
Absolutely, and you can carry on doing that for quite a fair time. I did it. I managed to last about 3 years before I hit the wall. And I had RSI, I had exhaustion, and you also have compassion fatigue. I mean, how I say it is that if you're giving a massage and after that massage that client's going, that was amazing, and your little inside is going, I want one too. That is the time to get yourself off to your friends, your colleagues, or even just somebody who doesn't know you, so you can just be another client.
Yeah, it's so true. I remember seeing a client climbing on my couch and thinking, "Come on, wish I was you."
Roll over, I'm going to get there as well.
I'm coming too. Yeah.
So absolutely, self-care is just essential, and it comes in so many different ways. And I'm going to be talking about certain things here which are really good to look after yourself. But whatever works for you, even if it's just going out into the garden and doing some weeding.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, isn't it? We've got this notion in our head. I was asked to go and speak on a panel of well-being experts, which I find really funny, but they asked me to go along, and one of the ladies said, I was trying to do some meditation and trying to do yoga, and I just felt like I should do it, and I really, really didn't enjoy it. And I was like, why should you doing anything? It's like a horrible case of the shoulds. Drop the shoulds. You do the thing that you like doing. That might be actually just sitting down and drinking a hot cup of coffee, or that might be walking barefoot around the garden, or it could be anything, couldn't it?
It might be sharing a gin and tonic with your friends. You know, I'm all about the 80-20 rule. If you're going to do something bad, whatever that bad is, do the best bad you can be, you know, make sure it's the best gin or the best coffee or the best chocolate you can do, and then, you know, mop it all up by 80% of being your angel. But that 20% just lets you off gas, really. It lets you just have that time where you can go, oh, now I can come back. That self-care is just essential.
Yeah, so important. So tell me a little bit more about like what you're doing now. So you've got your own clinic in Twickenham?
Yes, I've been, so 1999 I started. I work from my home in the top of my house, in Twickenham. So I get a lot of the London and a lot of the Surrey, Hampshire people come to me as well. So Twickenham's quite good, it's on the border. Majority of my work is Arvigo therapy, but the underlying core is aromatherapy and my absolute love for oils and all that they do. I know that I'm talking to the chapel here, the converted, we're all aromatherapists. We all know and love those essential oils. But they really do partner and support me throughout whatever therapies I'm doing or whatever self-care I'm doing. There's always an oil that I can pop in. So yes, I work weekdays. So again, weekends are my time off. So that's that self-care aspect as well.
20%.
That's my 20%, my 2 days off. Yes, so I'm offering aromatherapy, reflexology. I have to say I've studied in various forms of healing too, but once you're a healer and it comes through your hand, whether you're linking in or not. And then Arvigo therapy. So those really are my main three loves.
Oh, nice. So I haven't heard anything at all about, so I don't know anything at all about Arvigo therapy. So you did aromatherapy first and then reflexology and then found Arvigo?
Yes, so it was through my own personal worry. You know, I said about I lasted for 3 years. And then my health took such a dive. My menstrual cycle was totally up against the wall. There was no menstrual cycle, and I tried many things, and the oils helped a little bit, but it wasn't really coming back into it. So it was through me doing some research and finding out that there was this therapy which worked on the abdomen, specifically around the pelvis and the back and the sacrum and the hips, and it was just an external massage, and it purported to do amazing things. But I think that the real nugget of why Arvigo worked for me was because you get taught how to do a self-care massage as part of the treatment. So you come for a treatment, you experience it, you relax, you become a passive person, you open yourself out to the healing, and then you become very active and participating in your own recovery. And the self-care massage, which is taught, was the thing which really began to open my eyes to what was happening in my body in very different levels. And also because I was doing something every day, it makes your body respond much more vibrantly than it would be if you just come once a month.
Yeah, of course. So did you go for a treatment first and find out, or did you train first?
So actually, I did it completely the opposite way around to normal people, or whatever normal is, I don't know. But a lot of people find out about it and then go off and do it and find the people. And I was on holiday in Belize in Central America, yes. And Belize used to be British Honduras, so it's right next to Mexico and on the Guatemala border. And I was on holiday there, and the person I was with just gave me this book called Sastun, and said that she's a bit big in this area, you might fancy like reading about it. And I was on the beach literally reading this book of this American herbalist who came in the 1980s, found a complete love of Belize and all of the rainforest remedies and the herbs, and because she's a herbalist, she was just absolutely passionate about it. She's using essential oil, she's using herbs, she's using the herbology aspect. And then she linked in with a Maya shaman called Donna Lichio Panti. And was just completely blown away by what she'd been hearing about this absolute legend of a man who was the direct lineage. He had an unbroken lineage of hundreds and hundreds of years from shaman to shaman to shaman, and she apprenticeshiped with him for about 13 years until his death when he was, I think he was 103 in the 90s. So she put her Western knowledge of ligaments. She was also a naturopath therapist, which is an offshoot of osteopathy and chiropractic.
Okay.
So she was very knowledgeable about the body, the ligaments, how it all works. And then it's just this beautiful mix. So this book was just telling me of her story, of how she sort of met Don Eligio, and how she learned all about the essential spirituality of a treatment, the herbs and the oils about how they help, and then the physical manipulation of how a body is. So it was a beautiful harmony of all three aspects, the mind, the body, and the spirit really coming together. So I was at that point going through my menstrual stuff, and it was like, I've got to meet this woman. And she met me, you know, I was just a punter on a beach, and she just came down, and she's such a gracious lady. Her name's Rosita Arvigo. And she met me, and that was it. I was hooked. So I came home. I found, I think at that point there was only one or two therapists in the UK. Hilary Lewin was that person. And here I am. So since that was 15 years ago, or maybe even 16, who cares? It was a lot of years ago. And it was just transformative. And what I just wanted to begin to shout about to other people is what it's taught me is, if I'm not strong and standing in my center, then quite frankly, you're doing a disservice to yourself, and you're just doing a disservice to those around you. So that's really my carrying call, is go look after yourselves, whatever way it works for you. Arvigo was mine, and there was lots of other supportive modalities like castor oil packs, like vaginal steaming. Yes, I said the word vagina. Let's call it perineum steaming or whatever. And the self-care massage and the oils and the herbs, just it was what worked for me.
Yeah. And then would you say that is that all under control and symptom free now?
Well, symptom free in as much that I'm postmenopausal now, so hey. It got me back my cycle. It didn't get me back a 28-day cycle. I have to say I've never had one of those, but it got me back a cycle. I was cycling for weeks and weeks with doing weird things. I was bleeding for 3 weeks, and I didn't have anything else for 6 weeks. But that was my kind of cycle. And that's a whole long story, and I can go into great depth about why. Now that I've done all this training, I now understand why. That was a lot of the hormonal pill that I was taking, which really mucked up my endocrine system. That's another story.
That's a whole other show.
So where was I? What was I talking about? So
about your self-care and the coming back and having this training.
So the training, and it got me back my cycle. And what I really loved was the fact that it wasn't exclusive. It was totally inclusive. It was allowing you to practice as a therapist. You're doing your Arvigo work, yes, but also I was adding essential oils to the oil that I was working on when I was working the abdomen and the solar plexus, the diaphragm, the sacrum, the coccyx. It was the oils were always there with me, in enhancing the work that I was doing, because the Arvigo work is a massage technique. So we can go on many, many different courses to learn massage techniques, but the oils were the constant that I was then bringing to my own treatment.
This is what such amazing thing about essential oils. They can just be added to so many things. So I'm I initially trained in massage, then went on to do clinical aromatherapy, and then taken my little broken body off to learn to be a Pilates instructor, because Pilates had been so useful in me keeping my body strong with a massage. And then when I went to my Pilates training, the first day and a half, I was so worried that I was now going to become a jack of all trades, and I do this and I do that, and then at lunchtime on the second day, I realized actually all of this is going to come together, and the use of essential oils in Pilates practice is so important, opening up the respiratory airways. And this is what's so incredible about essential oils, that it can be added to things that you're already doing or things that you add to your training. There is just no part that they can't be involved in. It's so amazing.
Totally. And you talking about Pilates is really a nice sort of into the work that I do. Is I'm all about the pelvis.
So tell me more about that, because I'm so excited to hear about it.
So really, if our Donaligio Panti, the Maya shaman in Belize, he would say if a woman's uterus is not in its rightful place, then so is the woman's not going to be in the right place. Rosita Arvigo talks about it's the throne of creation, and I just love those images of being whole in yourself. And it really, we all know that if something's not right in our belly, whatever that belly means, we're just off. Our digestion is just essential. We're learning every day with the microbiome how important that is, and how much everything is effectively related to our gut. But for me, it's the diaphragm. So if our diaphragm is really restricted, then how can stuff get into our belly? I've got, here's one I made earlier. If I can go to a share screen, there is a picture.
That's so good. It's almost like we've done this before.
It's almost like
it's like we practiced it.
I'm not sure if you can hear that. Can you hear Heathrow coming in? If you can't, then that's great. The levels of our mic.
I can't hear it. Does it make you want to go on holiday all the time?
Do you know what? It makes me really happy that I'm here, that I don't have the airports to deal with.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
We are a holding station for a lot of friends and families who come.
Oh, yes.
And we take them to the airport. Anyway, I digress. So the people that you see here, you've got Donaligio Panti and Rosita Arvigo, and he was a classic Dr. Clown. So he was all about making people laugh and their sadness will go away, he would say. And you know that when we do our laughing of our diaphragm, be it laugh, be it crying, it's really allowing that muscle to begin to open up. So here he is in Belize. And here's Rosita in the Belizean jungle. And on the right-hand side is Donaligio Panti's his cabin, so his healer's hut. So you can see the various paraphernalia there of what he was doing to bless the herbs, to bless the people, bring the spirituality in. You've got the pestle and mortar on the left-hand side. Can you see my... Yeah, can you see my cursor coming around? So
yes.
That would be rubbed up and down the base board, and the roots and the leaves would be crushed to make the medicine. But that was a little preamble to say, look at this gorgeous illustration. And this is just a really interesting image to see what the diaphragm does and why it's so important. And can you see there's only 3 holes within the diaphragm? Everything else is this flat swathe of muscle.
Louise, did you get to visit this healing hut here?
By the time I came, it was in the, when was it? The late 90s. No, it was Rosita developed it much more, so no, I never actually got to go there. But the reason here is the next.
I love this.
The next illustration. So can you see the whole of the screen here?
Yes.
Okay, so we were talking about the psoas and why looking after your diaphragm and breathing deeply is really important. And if you can see this lovely illustration of the diaphragm, you can see that there's only 3 apertures within this diaphragm. and everything else is this great swathe of muscle.
Yeah. And
so if this diaphragm's tight, we all know, we talk to our clients about deep breathing, not chest breathing. But if we can imagine that it's like this umbrella of tight muscle, we squeeze our fingertips together. Well, that's what those fibers are doing in that psoas muscle. So they're going to be squishing those the holes within the diaphragm.
Yeah.
This top one is for the esophagus, so that's where the food comes into our stomach, and our stomach sits there. Sorry, that's the esophagus there. And then the vena cava. Now I've got this all mixed up here. That's the vena cava. This is the aorta, and this is the esophagus. So this is the food. This is the main blood from the heart coming through into the lower part of the body. And then this is the vena cava coming back with return blood. So really restricting those little holes, you're actually restricting A, how the food gets in you, B, how the blood gets in you and out of you. So if our blood's not circulating around and we're not eating properly, we're really on a really tough wicket there. So this opening up, so essential oils could be there to use you to deep breathe. You could be using it in any way, even when you're doing your treatments on yourself, your self-care on yourself. You're really taking that time to breathe and to smell the oils and think about these little apertures. Think about everything softening and opening. But if you look conversely down at the bottom, look at the pelvic floor. That's almost like a mirror of what's happening with the diaphragm. So if our diaphragm's tight, then our pelvic floor tends to be really tight. We need a pelvic floor that's like a trampoline, and its strength comes through its flexibility. Yeah. If we've got a really tight diaphragm, then it's a weak one, and that's when all manner of stuff happens. So keeping that soft flow going, it's fantastic. And here, the psoas muscle, which is here, either side, and it's totally intertwined within the diaphragm muscles. It's affected. You can see if the diaphragm's tight, the psoas is going to be tight too. And often people are misusing the psoas muscle. I don't need to tell you, you're a Pilates instructor. They're misusing it as a core strengthener. And it's Liz Koch. I don't know if you've heard of her. Liz, it's Koch. Her life's passion has been the psoas muscle. And she just talks about this muscle being a proprioceptive muscle. It's like a tongue. So if we're tight and are tense and ready to go and our cortisol level is flying around our body, then that psoas muscle is exactly the same. It's ready to pounce. If you can imagine when we were on all fours way back when we were in the swamps and not quite so developed as we are now, those muscles were there to power the hind legs away. So we were running away from stuff. And that's exactly what they're doing now. But we're not running away. We're trying to stand up straight. So it turns into this desiccated, dry muscle. And just generally lying on the floor with your legs bent, massaging your belly, smelling essential oils is the best thing you can do to that psoas muscle and help it just begin to plump up, get that blood flowing.
And if you think about, if we're looking at treating clients now, the amount of clients that we have that are spending a lot of their days seated and sedentary, all that compression through this area, and guaranteed, if anybody, as a Pilates teacher, if someone goes in, oh, I've got issues with my discs, guaranteed L4, L5, S1. And if you look at that area there, that compression area and that tightness and what's happening with psoas through that area as well, it's,
Absolutely. And this is why working on the front and the back part of the body is essential. A lot of the time when I trained way back in the late 90s, it was a case of just a little bit of a round rub on the belly, but don't touch the belly. And I left, I have to say, my massage training was quite fearful about touching the belly. But oh my goodness, if you massage someone's belly right now, you are just having the most blessed experience of they're allowing you into their space, And I just, every time I'm treating somebody, it's just the most beautiful, humbling experience for them to allow me to come into their energy and then just to hold
area, isn't it? I mean, for females, when coming for a full body massage, probably 90% of the women will start and go, "Oh no, don't go."
I won't touch my belly. Absolutely.
But then if you say, oh, actually, it's going to really help with any back pain that you might be having. So actually, we need to open it. It's the same with the shoulders. Then my shoulder's really tight at the back. Oh, brilliant. Well, actually, all I need to do is to open up the front. Because if we open up the front, the back gets to switch off. Same with through the belly. If we open up the front, then actually the back gets to switch off a little bit. So then they'll be like, oh, okay, you can touch it. But don't look at it. And I haven't shaved my legs. Like every time.
How many times have we had women, or any, it's mostly women on the bed going, sorry, I haven't shaved my legs.
I haven't shaved my legs. I was like, I didn't even notice actually what goes on in your legs. And so
quite frankly, I am so beyond any hair issues. Yeah, really.
Oh, sorry, my child. Can you bear with me? This is Austin, everybody.
Hello, Austin.
Give me a second. Oh, the working life of a mother, eh?
Oh, I know.
Honestly, I was just thankful he's clothed. That's happened before. He just turns up in his boxers. I'm like, oh! Real life.
Love him.
Yeah, real life. Yes, I was like, I'm flummoxed now where we were.
Anyway, we're completely flummoxed now. So let me go on to what my next... So yes, you were talking about the L3, 4, 5 and the SI joint, and you can really see here how tense things can be and how these back vertebrae can easily be popped out of place if there's some tension there. So yeah, working that back, working the QLs, working around the L3, 4, 5, just great if you can do that. Yeah. I'm not sure what's happening. Excuse me, technical.
Brilliant.
Technical things. Here we go. Oh, this is so the uterus. Let's leave that for a second, because we can talk about the uterine stuff a little later, but I really wanted to bring across this self-care and how else we can go into self-care. So castor oil is my absolute passion. This is
it like drinking it, swallowing it?
No. You can absolutely drink it. However, I wouldn't advise it at all. It's
people used to say that for to bring on labour and birth years ago, drink castor oil.
So, well, exactly that. That's one of the reasons why you can't get it easily off of the shelf, because a lot of people have been misusing it. And I think some people still use it to start labour. And the reason why it's still not quite understood how the molecular chemistry works within the body, but there have been studies to show that it stimulates the prostaglandins. So it's stimulating the circulation both and the sensation of the prostaglandins both in the gut and the uterus. So that could be great for... Hi, Austin.
Yeah, just pause it again. Sorry.
Okay. So let's talk about the castor oil. So I was talking about prostaglandins. If I witter on about that, and maybe in the edit you can see if that helps.
Okay.
So the castor oil has been found to stimulate the prostaglandins within the body. So you can see how it is going to create some form of reaction in the gut and in the uterus. So that's potentially why people were using it to start labour. But really, I wouldn't be advocating having it internally at all. What I use it for is for external castor packs. Now, I've done there's a little blog which you can link people to, and it just tells people after this talk, it just tells people how to do castor packs. So easy. Effectively, it's put castor oil on your skin, put a cloth over the castor oil, put a heat pad on top of that, That's it. It's no, you can find out if you were to Google how to do a castor pack, there's many different ways, but that's actually the easiest way. But as aromatherapists, we've got the icing on the cake, because then we can understand, okay, what's this castor pack for? Is it for an achy neck? Is it for a lymphatic edemic ankle? Is it for a dodgy knee? You know, it really is a cure-all kind of thing. Is it for a skin breakout? So then we can blend an oil and place it into the castor oil and use that as a base oil. Okay. And together with the essential oils and the castor oil, it's called the Palm of Christi, the Palm of Christ, because it has been so miraculous. And the more I work with it, the more it surprises me about how amazing. My friends and family are going, so my mum actually, I was calling her yesterday and she just said, oh, I fell over. And I was like, oh, and I bent my little finger and my ring finger back. What can I do? And I went, what do you reckon I'm going to say? And she went, oh, you're going to tell me to put castor oil on it, aren't you? And I went, yeah. That's always my catch oil. Yeah. Catch oil is to do that. It's just amazing. It really, so
what's the properties of castor oil then?
There you go. I'm just about to go into
setting you up then.
So what's so good about castor oil?
Yeah, what's so good about it?
It's Ricinus communis is the Latin name, and it's where it has ricinoleic acid in it, and it's the only thing which has ricinoleic acid. Now, you might have heard from ricin as this powerful poison, and the castor bean is actually, that's where ricin comes from, so it's an incredibly poisonous bean. However, when it's extracted out in the castor oil making process, it's a completely benign oil, but it has the ricinoleic acid in it, obviously, and it's a bit like a snake bite. It can kill you and cure you. Well, exactly the same with castor oil. So it excites the immune system. So when castor oil is on the skin, the T lymphocyte cells, the immune boosting cells, gather round going, hang on chaps, we've got poison here. And there'll be, wherever castor oil is applied, you'll find that there's a proliferation, or it has been found that there's a proliferation of these T lymphocyte cells there. So when they go there and then they don't find any poison, they're just scrabbling around for dead cells, any inflammation, any non-living tissue. So it's really good for scar tissue. It's really good for inflammation. Very good for just generally clearing and purifying the body. And when used with heat, it accelerates because you're getting more blood to that area as well. So you can use it with or without heat according to whatever reason you're using it. So castor oil as a self-care technique, I can't highly recommend it. Go off, everybody, do your research and get some castor oil. You will have your own specific supplier, but I get mine from Amazon, making sure it's organic and cold pressed.
Okay, that was going to be my next question, because I actually haven't seen castor oil, I don't think, for sale with aromatherapy suppliers, but I probably haven't looked for it. It wasn't
No, the suppliers that I use as well, they don't stock it, and it generally tends to be easy on that one kind of thing.
Okay.
Oh, there. There's a really good supplier on Amazon, so do your research. But organic cold press, like everything that we talk about with these oils.
Yeah.
Really good.
Wow, amazing. So your Arvigo therapy, what is so special? Because I'm obviously a massage therapist originally, so the massage side of this really interests me. So what makes this so fantastic? What's so good about it?
So obviously the self-care, you get to be taught a self-care routine. So I would put that way up there as one of the main reasons why it's effective, because you're getting your clients to massage themselves. They are eliciting that healing every single day, and they're also being very mindful of themselves. So emotionally, I liken it to being a bit of a moving meditation. So you're not asking them to sit with their legs crossed going on. You're actually saying, so here's this really simple technique of massaging your pelvis, massaging your diaphragm, massaging your small intestines, and really think about when you're doing that, what's happened to you today? How do you feel? Breathe deeply, relax, let it all go. Here's a little blend that I've made. Take this, use this as your massage oil, do some self-care, do some castor oil packs as well. Secondly, Arvigo therapy stimulates the 5 systems of flow, and that would be the blood, so that's the arterial, venous, the nerves, the energetic aspect, and the lymph. And when all of that's flowing around, we've got homeostasis, we've got hemodynamics, we've got the good flow of blood, you know, how the blood's flowing around. And actually that then is just allowing the body to be its naturally rejuvenating, invigorating kind of space that pure living and thriving is about. Most of us are just surviving right now. This is all about how do we thrive. So it is working on opening up the diaphragm, as I've talked about before. There's a diaphragmatic technique that we do around the solar plexus and the ribs, just opening that out. And then we are going to be working around the hips. Now, the reason that we work around the hips is because we have got the uterus, and here is our gorgeous, and this is for females, obviously. This is just as good for males too. So if you can superimpose the uterus with the prostate, these are the 2 creative organs for male and for female. So for the female, here's an illustration that we all see in our anatomy books of a dissected uterus, and she looks like a little angel, God love her. And you can see all of the different ligaments that hold her in place. This is the suspensory ovarian ligament, the proper ovarian ligament. This is the broad ligament. You've got the cardinal ligament here, the round ligament. So there's many, many different kind of ligaments, and they are all intertwining and holding the uterus in this pelvic bowl. And if our ligaments are restricted or injured through whatever reason, childbirth experience, abdominal surgery, stress, injuries. I was a horse rider. I fell off many, many times. I broke my sacrum, and I had no idea until I started doing Arvigo therapy that I had a broken sacrum. Who knew? And then this is how all of those ligaments are intertwined within the uterus. So she is held, and you can see here, she's held in the pelvis like a hammock, with a hammock of ligaments. So when we're doing our self-care, and if you can see my my cursor moving, we're going to be working all of this area and doing the 5 systems of flow, stimulating everything so those ligaments can begin to heal. And then we do an abdominal massage around the digestive organs. So there's lots that we can be working with. And here's one I made earlier.
Oh, look at this!
With a little soft pelvis. So personally, my sacrum, I fell off a horse. I used to do cross country, so I slammed against a fence. And I broke my sacrum. And so my sacrum has got this bulge in it like that. And I've got quite a lymphedemic sacrum. It's always quite spongy. Of course, that's the body protecting itself. It's created a cushion that protects an injury. So work over the sacrum, around the coccyx, around the hips. Really important to keep that all going. But also, what's happening inside here? So here is a little uterus that we've seen.
It's just adorable.
Here she is. So we know her like this, but reality, she doesn't look like that in situ. She looks like this. So if you can imagine that she's bending forward like that, that's actually her position within the pelvic bowl. So she's stuck in here. She's nestling nice and soft underneath all the pubic bones, being protected. And she's nestled right the way back here, and you can see it's there's the ovaries and the fallopian tubes and the fimbriae, all nicely stuck in there. So making sure that these ligaments, if you can imagine what would have happened if when I was slammed against that wall, everything went back and she just got all squished. Now, if we don't address that position quite immediately within the next weeks while it's while it's healing, then she's probably going to stay there. And then if she stays there, what's going to happen to the bowel?
Yeah.
All the constipation. Yeah. What's going to happen to all of the other fluid flows in and out of the legs? Maybe varicose veins kicks in. Maybe there's tingling in the legs because we've got the foramen, these little holes here, they're beginning to swell up with the edema and then push on the nerves. So this is explaining to you, you know, why Arvigo is so good, because it massages your belly. Just get massaging your belly, everyone. It really, really helps. And then here.
And you know, just thinking sort of like the position of an aromatherapist in massage, we do tend to bend from the hips a little bit, do we? And we teach a lot of movement through massage in my school just because of the Pilates background. But actually before I trained in Pilates, there was a kind of bent over, and you think you kind of bend from your hip joints, don't you? And actually that compression there as well into long periods of massage work as well. So actually just taking the time as part of a self-care routine to extend a little bit, to open up, find the full length through the spine, and then just into massage and releasing everything there. I quite often kind of fascially massage my psoas as well after a long day's work, just kind of everything to open up a little bit. But even if we just did that as part of a self-care, that would be amazing.
Absolutely. And I have to put my hand up, you know, a lot of the time it's say what I do, what I say, not what I do.
I don't know what you mean.
Because I have a preferred position at the bed. You know, I work better on one side than I do.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
We're stronger there and we tend to do that. So we tend to favour. So exactly, learning to work from both sides so you become ambidextrous. But as a result, after 20 odd years of doing this, I do have a twist in my body. And now, and this is a word of wisdom and a word of warning for all you young therapists out there, I'm now 53, I'm post-menopausal, and it's coming back to bite me. You know, I'm not as bendy and as estrogen rich as I used to be, and those joints actually are giving me quite a lot of jip, because I have always preferred to be in this rotation. So again, self-care is, for goodness sake, get yourself on that bed at the end of the day and just do a relaxation, opening Shavasana kind of yogic pose, just rolling up a towel down your spine and just laying down and completely doing the opposite that you've done all day of doing that. Really important. And then here are some womb models which I've made, which is indicating how this uterus changes within the pelvis, and further illustrating why ligaments are really going to be changing at different times of the month. So we showed this was a uterus. So this tends to be approximately a non-menstruating uterus. And you can see she's sitting in the pelvis quite happily, and this is about what she's doing here, yeah? And then when she menstruates, we all know that we get a bit tender, a bit full feeling. Well, comparing the two, this is a menstruating uterus. This is when the endometrium is at its zenith just before we bleed. So imagine all those things is going on. And then let's put her in a pelvis.
Oh my God, is that why we bloat?
Well, that's one of the reasons. It could be one of the reasons, but there's lots of other hormonal issues as to why we're bloating, because the crashing of the hormones is going to be eliciting different experiences of the gut and the lymph as well. But on a very basic level, she's much bigger. she's creating more cramping space. So what's going to be happening on that colon? What's going to be happening on that bowel? Do you always need to feel like you have to wee a lot? Are you slightly constipated? And then when the period starts, you have period poos. You know, that's how that could be happeing. And then, God love her, this is a postmenopausal uterus. Of course, she's a bit shiny and woo-woo, because we all are when we're menopausal. We love purple and we say what we think. She shrinks down to not quite, but a prepubescent size. So she's a little bit smaller than a normal menstruating uterus. And she has to shrink down onto a really clean inner lining. If she's shrinking down onto an endometrial lining that has for 400 or so periods, which is how many periods we'll have in a fertile life, if she's not quite filled and cleansed out totally, then she's closing down on actually a space that needs that it's not happy. So you could have flooding, you could have your perimenopausal time could be a little troublesome, because she's doing her best to close down on a tidy space. So the Arvigo work is specifically looking at the pelvis and really helping that uterus cleanse and clear, so that especially women in their 40s, they, you know, educate your clients about menopause. It's fabulous that I'm now owning menopause, and it seems to be a word which I'm seeing everywhere else. It's like you learn a word and then you see it everywhere, but there's loads of books and whatever. Educate your clients about menopause so that when they're hitting it, it's not a complete surprise. You see so many people who are completely flummoxed by it, and some women think they're going mad by it, but doing their work in their 40s is going to help that transition. Again, looking after yourself. And then conversely, with all of this, a man is also going to be experiencing exactly the same issue here, but their prostate is the size of a walnut. I don't have one specifically here, but and everything that we've talked about is exactly the same for a male pelvis as well. The walnut is sitting quite deep within the pelvic area. There's not so much space within a male pelvis because nothing swells and contracts quite like our uterus, but there are micro ligaments there still. So this work is really good. So men doing their self-care, and I might be talking very generally, but women love to talk about you know, how to look, how to care with the nurturers. Men is no, it's all fine. So they tend to be putting everything behind this really protective barrier. So getting our men to do their self-care is essential.
Definitely. And then the other thing I was thinking, this would be really excellent for postnatal ladies as well, to get everything to return back, you know, because you've got that anteriorly tilted pelvis for pregnancy, and many of them don't then, you know, help the muscles to get back into place. So that would be an incredible treatment for them.
Yeah, absolutely. For fertility, generally for fertility, this is Arvigo therapy is getting huge attention, because it's helping the ovaries, it's helping the fallopian tubes, it's helping reduce the inflammation within that pelvic area, which often is just a simple act as, if you could imagine this corner here, it's a 90-degree corner when you think this is how it is. So it's not like that. So if there is inflammation here, then actually the sperm and the egg getting down that corner, if that's gone, then the flow happens. So that's a very simple explanation on that front. But yes, for postpartum and for pregnant care and postpartum care, it's absolute godsend.
And then the client with endometriosis as well. I've worked with quite a few clients with Pilates, of just actually trying to get pelvic floor to release because it's in such a state of spasm. Yes. So again, this would be an incredible
pastoral packs for endometriosis is fantastic, because it's that drawing property. So the pelvis, you're giving that pelvis a little bit of help, because in a totally functioning optimal pelvis and 5 systems of flow pelvic scenario, the blood can be absorbed, possibly not all of it that's produced on an endometrial cell that's bleeding in unison with the cycle, but a lot of it can be absorbed, so that it's also then softening, and it's allowing the adhesions of the cycles that have happened before to begin to soften and move. So it's this a little bit more, instead of a little bit less each time. So castor oil packs, both front and back, around the pelvic area for endometriosis, really great.
That's really, really good.
And then we haven't even touched on vaginal steams.
I think we've got to cover it because you dropped that one in earlier. We can't
I'll just keep on putting the word vagina in, shall I? So just getting a bowl of herbs. You're making a tea effectively and sitting over a bowl of herbs. So,
okay.
It's again trying to really demystify it. It's Gwyneth Paltrow. I think she made a bit of a ripple in the social media world because she mentioned it first, and bless her, she got a lot of a stick for it. But the steam doesn't go up your vagina. I mean, that's basically, I think it's a bit of a misnomer. It's a perineum steam. What it's doing is it's encouraging blood to the pelvic area. So again, anything we can do to get that healing, nurturing, nutrient-rich blood to an area is going to help heal it.
So how does that, was that not a crossing over with a bath as well then, with the heat from a bath?
Yeah.
A bath would do just as well as,
A bath's a bit different because it's more general. So a bath is, you're totally encouraging your whole body to relax.
Yeah.
Vaginal steams are great for any pelvic examinations, smear tests, or egg extraction or egg insemination, anything to do with the IVF cycle. It's great to just soften the cervix, to allow warmth into the pelvic bowl, to allow warmth into the perineum and the pelvic floor muscles, just to soften and open. So if you're doing a vaginal steam, then you don't want to steam every specific day, because anything doing too much is going to be too much. But you could do that maybe once, twice a week, and definitely if you're going for any kind of pelvic exam, do it before you get yourself to the doctor or the specialist. Before you leave, steam.
And then you said about herbs. Obviously, I don't kind of work with herbs. I'm not a herbalist. So what about essential oils into that instead?
Yeah, you're around your mucous membranes, aren't you? And that's a big no-no, isn't it, for us? So, I wouldn't put essential oils for a vaginal steam. No, it's just too much. I would stick with the herbs. So fresh or dried herbs. Think pizza herbs. They're the best. Okay. Oregano, thyme, rosemary, basil.
So if you do that before going for your smear.
Yeah. And also, if you've got any vaginal dryness or vaginosis or vulvodynia or anything to do with issues with the pelvis and the labia, then steaming is lovely because you're just toning it down, you're relaxing, you're breathing. You're getting someone to sit over a bowl of steaming herbs for 20 minutes and breathing. You're breathing it in too.
Okay, physically, how is that going to be possible to do that? So, and when years ago, my parents used to have a bidet in the house, which my brother and we used to use for water fights. Actually, I used to point the nozzle at the door and call him in and get him with it. So I don't think we ever used it other than to wash our feet when we'd been down the river. But that would be so perfect for that. But for those that don't have a bidet in the house, how do you sit over? Because that squat position is going to burn.
That was a real 80s thing, bidets in bathrooms.
It was, yeah. It was.
I've seen a bidet in a bathroom for years and years and years. My mum and dad had a bidet. It was a French thing, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
So you would get your saucepan on the hob.
Yeah.
You'd fill it with yay much of water, or as much water as you would put in a big Pyrex bowl.
Yeah.
Get a couple of, if you're using fresh couple of handfuls of dried. Now in my garden at the moment, we're in July at the moment, so it's a really beautiful time. So there's rosemary, there's oregano, there's basil. Don't use the sages. Sages tend to be drying of membranes. They're a very drying kind of herb. But just get rose petals, lavender, whatever. Use your aromatherapy knowledge, because that's exactly what's going to be happening here. So you don't want to dry mucous membranes out. Anything mucilaginous, anything that's juicy. So get your 2 handfuls of fresh stuff or a handful of dried stuff. Shove it in the saucepan, put the lid on top, bring it to the boil, and then just let it steep for about 10 minutes. And that's just allowing everything to all open up. In the meantime, you can either find a slatted chair, put the bowl under the slatted chair and sit over that. Spread your bits, sit down on the chair. Or you can put the bowl in a toilet. How about that? Just lift up the toilet seat, put the Pyrex bowl in the toilet seat, and then pour everything in there. Put the toilet seat down. Make sure that you get a duvet or something, because you need to make a seal. You're effectively making a sauna.
Yeah.
And be careful when you're sitting down, because actually the steam, first time I did it, it was like, quick, wasting the steam. And it was like, sat down, oh no, let that go for a couple of minutes. So just be careful, because it is hot.
Okay.
And then just relax and and think of all of those opening, pelvic floor opening techniques, softening, opening wide techniques. And then you go and lay down. It's essential that you lay down or rest afterwards. However, if you don't have the time to do that, then just do a bridge position. So you're laying on the floor with your hips raised, because that's as important that you get the blood out of the hips into the pelvis, out of the pelvis, as it is to get it in. Otherwise, all you've done is you just got more blood in there. You need to just rinse it out. So you can just do an up and down. So your bridge position with your hips coming up and down, you're just squeezing that blood to come out of that pelvis.
You could even have like a bolster underneath the hips and legs of the wall.
Yeah.
That would be nice. And actually amazing relaxation position.
Or even just laying on the floor with your legs on a sofa in a 90-degree angle, and that really softens out the lower back.
Yeah. Amazing. Guess what I'm doing this afternoon?
And I won't even start talking about penis soaks. I've said penis as well.
Can't leave that there, not expand. You've got to now do that as well.
You can tell you what, I'll leave that hanging, and then that means that everyone's got to come to the AGM, the IFPA AGM, and I'll talk about penis soaks then. How about that?
Yes.
I can't give you all my information, because you've got to come.
It's not all in one. I'm so chuffed that you're going to come to the CPD event in
I am
November.
so made up to come. As you can see, I've got loads to talk about, and I can talk about, trillions of different things. And what I really want to talk about is that at the AGM, I'm going to be talking about how men need this as much as women. I see probably 98, maybe 99% of my clients are women. And our guys need it too, and our youngsters need it too. All this information needs to be taught to our young children now, so that they're growing up and we're not sentencing them to, really the wilderness years of their teens and their 20s, when they're in period pain, when there are different ways of supporting. So I'm going to be talking more about that.
Oh, it's going to be amazing. It's going to be amazing. Thank you so much for doing that.
My pleasure.
Oh, I have had a lovely morning with you. Thank you so much.
So let me just leave you with, if you are interested, or this is
all the details up, so that people know how to find you and where to find
your interest in finding out more about the therapy. This is the general website where all of the classes are listed, and the next teaching in the UK will be in November, and that is the 19th to the 23rd of November in Dorking.
Oh, excellent.
And I'll be teaching that class then. So,
Dorking?
Sorry?
Where's Dorking?
Where's Dorking? In Surrey, just below London, Guildford, Leatherhead, that kind of way.
Amazing. So amazing. Thank you so much. So, So if anybody wants to get hold of you and chat with you a little bit more about this, how can they get hold of you?
LouiseCrockart.com.
Oh, nice and easy. Perfect. Perfect. Oh, lovely. Thank you so much. Louise, thank you for such a brilliant, brilliant session. It was really, really interesting.
Great. My pleasure. Thank you very much.